the obsessive thought is a programming mistake, you could even say, of our mind that is under the impression that if we think about the problem, it will disperse the pain, it will reduce the suffering. If I think about it, it will reduce the suffering. This is a programming line that you have within your mind, and it is absolutely not true. It will perpetuate the suffering to think about it. Practically, what do we do? There's a few steps that you can follow. I will comment a little bit on each of them. And it follows already a bit what Uriel was sharing. Step 1, self-awareness. I think this is already more clear than maybe other steps. I will comment a little bit in a moment. Step 2, accepting the pain in the actual style and size and ways that it actually is. Contemplating the pain with the outer and inner awareness, like Uriel described already. And then in step 4, allowing transformation to naturally arise from there. So we become self-aware, we accept and embrace the pain, the suffering exactly as it is in that moment. We remain contemplating it in order to reveal the lesson within it. And finally, we transform deeply and naturally from this sequence, you could say, of steps. So let's look at each of them for a moment. Now, you could say that when you are in a state of suffering, when you are enduring in one way or another pain in an unconscious or unwanted, involuntary way, the step to remember yourself is the essential step. And this I hope you took away from what Uriel was describing now. To remember the duck, which now we have the running gag with the duck, but of course normally it is the self, it is the eternal highest nature of your being. To remember that is the key element of this. Usually we keep suffering because we stay in a semi-conscious or even completely unconscious state because we are not aware of us. So the suffering is sort of running the show and doing whatever it wants. So it can be helpful to look for a moment at sort of step 0, so pre-solving the problem. There's a few pointers that can be interesting to look at practically. First things first, you have to understand that suffering and pain, or like suffering as in the aversion of the pain, will remain unless you make a choice not to stay in it. It will not just disappear by itself unless you wait many, many years and so forth, the normal processes of course, we can unsuffer ourselves also by having time pass and so forth. But in the moment, usually the choice is, do I want to go the easy route, a bit less transfigured, we could say, the lazy route of just sticking with whatever the mind is currently spitting out? Or do we want to make a choice of controlling the mind, of taking an active inner attitude, of waking up to ourselves? It is always easier to just let it run. Never touch a running system, just let the suffering do what it does. Anyways, poor little me, poor little me, poor little me. Most of us have that running in our head anyways. Let's just stick with that, fine. It doesn't require effort whatsoever. It is on autopilot and it's doing its own thing. So remember, if you want to step into the process of healing, or like Uriel put it, revealing the transformative information and force of the suffering, it needs to be a choice, and it needs to be a choice against that which is typically comfortable and that which is sort of normally running on autopilot. So you are making the conscious choice of taking the wheel back into your hand and now controlling your mind, remembering yourself, which will always require much more effort than sitting for days on end, thinking of how everybody's doing you wrong, blaming everybody, taking hours of talks about how awful the other people are, how pitiful your life is, and all of that stuff. That is way easier to do because it is running on autopilot. So this is good to understand. One good indicator that you can use sort of as a cue that you are trapped into the automatisms of your own mind, is to observe obsessive thought. Uriel put it so nicely before. If you are thinking continuously about how little you care about someone, probably you care. Yeah. So the obsessive thought is a programming mistake, you could even say, of our mind that is under the impression that if we think about the problem, it will disperse the pain. It will reduce the suffering. If I think about it, it will reduce the suffering. This is a programming line that you have within your mind. And it is absolutely not true. It will perpetuate the suffering to think about it. So when you notice, I keep thinking about the same thing over and over and over and over again. It is sort of running on the background of my mind continuously. This is my cue to become aware of myself. Not necessarily to, of course you can sit down and make pro-con lists and so forth, but that's not necessarily the process that we are indicating in order to really come to a fast transformation. You have obsessive thoughts. Be sure that all the storylines, no, but I remember, and the other one doesn't remember, and I know what happened, and they don't remember what happened, but I should have said so and so, but then I didn't say so and so. All of that, the mind makes you believe is relevant. It is not relevant in solving your suffering. It might be helpful when, for example, you're talking to somebody, maybe you're having a discussion with someone that is involved in your little suffering story there. It can be helpful to air it out, because then you have it out there and then you can look at it. But don't get fooled that the storyline that makes you currently suffer is the storyline that is going to solve the suffering. It's not going to happen. Yeah? So putting it out there can help you to become aware of yourself. And with this self-awareness, all of a sudden, new ways of looking at the problem occur. Creative solutions occur, and so forth. So, it is much easier to suffer than not to suffer. Therefore, we would usually stick with that. Also, we will tend to think that obsessive thought reduces suffering. It doesn't. Take it as a cue instead to remember yourself, which is step 1 of the suggested methodology, if you want. Step 1, self-remembering, very simple. Take any type of fear, any type of pain, any type of suffering, any type of obsession, like we said before, even any type of desire. Take it as a cue for self-remembering. A desire arises, let me remember myself. Suffering arises, let me remember myself. Somebody's saying something to me that I find difficult to digest, it's triggering me, let me remember myself. Make it a habit, a good habit, a healthy habit inside of you. Something difficult arises, remember yourself. This is me having an experience. This is an invitation for me to look inside. I have now the opportunity to look inside. And like Uriel said, you can establish this double awareness, Gurdjieff style double awareness or inner-outer awareness, where you are aware of yourself and also you are aware of the suffering, of the processes that you are going through. Naturally, step 2 will arise from this. As you remember yourself, you will come in touch with the actual pain, with the actual problem, with the actual turmoil. And as you are now with this inner-outer awareness fully present to the turmoil, you see it for what it actually is, without distortions. Gurdjieff says very nicely, the greatest suffering is unnecessary suffering. The greatest amount of suffering that we have throughout our life is unnecessary suffering. You can just think about like a scene, your beloved was supposed to write you a message and you didn't write to you, and this makes you suffer. If you take it at face value, you are suffering the missing of a text message. Good. There's a little suffering there. But then the mind starts to decorate. It has the belief that if it starts thinking about it, surely the problem is going to solve itself. So then it starts showing it, oh, they didn't write to me. That probably means that they didn't think about me. If they didn't think about me, that probably means that they don't really love me. Then that probably means they don't really want to be with me. All of a sudden, you are suffering from a breakup, not anymore from a missing text message. And within your mind, there is no difference whatsoever. Your mind is sure we are suffering here from a breakup. Or at least we are suffering from an 80% potentiality of a breakup, which is still awful. It's one of the worst things that can happen to us, instead of suffering from a missing text message. So, when we self-remember and we come in touch with the actual pain, the actual turmoil, then it will become evident the actual size of the turmoil. The illusory added huge turmoil that we think we are in will reduce itself to, I'm actually suffering from this small turmoil here. The attitude that will be needed is to be willing to face the pain. In Tantra we say, to be a Tantric requires to stop chasing pleasure and to stop avoiding pain. Once you self-remember, you come in touch with the pain, you will be very willing to be in touch with it, face it for what exactly it is. From this, naturally, arises step 3, the contemplation of the pain of the suffering with the inner-outer awareness that will within it reveal the whole process of the correction of this disintegration that Uriel was describing, understanding within it the lesson that I need to learn, and so on and so forth. So now in step 3, inevitably as we are self-aware, in touch with the problem, now the problem, the suffering, the pain, the turmoil can gradually unfold and reveal what it is actually trying to tell us. The contemplation aspect here is important. Your mind might be tempted to now make other decorations, to have other confusions around it, to make more assumptions, and so forth. So in order to stay there contemplating with an outer inner awareness, one very, very helpful tool that I would even suggest to you, take a pen and a paper and write it down and make it a habit, is to observe the suffering within your body. Your body has this wonderful capacity that it is here, now, present. It is already in this moment. It is helping you to anchor yourself, not getting lost into the stories of the mind, into the illusions of the mind, but being here present with what is actually going on within your body. So you can ask yourself, when my body does the suffering, the pain, the turmoil, the difficulty occur? Even the desire, you can also use it for that. Where does the difficulty occur? You can even ask yourself more, if it's hard to sort of put your finger on it, you can stay with it a moment. What color might that turmoil have? What exact precise area is it taking up? And then you can ask yourself, basically, how does it move? What is the vector of movement of the suffering there within your body? Is it contracting? Allow it to contract. Remember, the problem is that we resist the pain. The problem is, like Uriel described, that the personality insists to not transform, insists to not read the message, to not receive the information that the suffering wants to offer you. Another example or analogy that Uriel likes to give, which I find very fitting, is that the suffering and the pain is sort of like a courier that is coming to your doorstep to deliver a message for you. And they keep knocking at your door and keep knocking at your door until you open. And once they have you in front of them, they will want to read you the full message. It is the same here. Your suffering has a message for you. It encrypts something very specific. And it just wants to deliver the message, but you keep shooting the messenger. Instead of just staying there and being like, okay, what are you trying to tell me? I feel the suffering, the difficulty right now in my chest. A little to the left, yes. It is expanding. I'm trying to resist it. Okay, let's not resist, just expand. Okay. All right, this is what is going on. Now it's tucking under a little and shooting in there. Okay, let's do that. Just follow with your awareness the movement of what is going on, how the suffering is expressing itself. This is a very helpful tool to just remain present to what is actually going on, rather than making conclusions and stories and all sorts of other things on top of it. So, step 3, sit, contemplate without an awareness. That suffering that you're going through, bringing awareness to it until it reveals the lesson, the correction, until it gives you the full message, until it gives you its feedback. And you can do all of that within your physical body. From this naturally arises step 4. You can see that we are not putting it like, okay, you do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. They arise naturally, one from the other, if you just stay with the process that is anyways meant to unfold. So in step 4, as you have become aware of yourself, aware of the pain, you stood with it and stayed with it until it had fully revealed itself, you will now naturally enter into the stage of transformation. Transformation will naturally arise when you take the feedback, when you take the message of the suffering in. In that way, you learn your lesson. Like Uriel said, you realize, I'm a duck. This is what is going on. This is my lesson. I'm going through a lesson of humbleness here. Okay, fine, let's do it. Let's not resist that. Which will then naturally realign you exactly with the place where you are meant to be, in which you will not suffer whatsoever. For this last step, which basically Gurdjieff would consider it, as Uriel said before, voluntary suffering, and in Tantra and Yoga we call it Tapas, can be very helpful to, let's say, actively encourage an attitude of Tapas within your being all the time. The attitude of Tapas is basically to understand that pain is inevitable. And if I make my choices right, then the pain that I experience can help me grow immensely. If you think about it, whatever muscles you currently have in your arm or in your legs, something like that, of course you were initially born with a certain set of muscles. But when you were a cute little baby and you didn't walk around yet, you didn't have a whole lot of super strongly developed muscles in your legs, because you didn't need your legs at that time. You were already training them though, moving them, if you ever saw a little baby lying on their back, moving them back and forth, kicking with them, already starting to build and to mold somehow the material, the little sweet body that you have available. So by contracting the muscles, by using the muscles, by enduring the pain of building muscles, you get the actual muscles that you then have, that you can use to, lift things around, walk around, maybe even run a marathon if that's what you train yourself to do. Pain is inevitable in order to grow, in order to come from the muscle that you were born with to the muscle that can do something specific in this world, that can make you walk around, that can make you run a marathon. You will need to endure pain. And this enduring of pain is what basically Gurdjieff calls voluntary suffering, or we call that in Tantra and Yoga, Tapas. The helping growing attitude is do whatever is uncomfortable now. You find it uncomfortable to stop your mind thinking about how awful somebody is treating you. Try to make that, I don't want to say a habit, but like an exercise, a training that you do. It's not comfortable. It's annoying. It has a pain in it. It creates suffering to do that. To be like, oh, okay, cut them. There's another thought of that. Okay, cut. Okay, cut. Okay, cut. Okay, cut. From that friction that you experience because you are meeting your automatized limits, from there arises growth. So within this 4th stage, try to embrace the frictions, the difficulty of growing muscles. Allow transformation to occur. Embrace your lessons very actively. You have something uncomfortable to talk about with someone, do it now. It's 1 o'clock at night and you still have a meditation to do it now. It's 5 a.m. in the morning, you feel so warm and cozy in your bed, but you got to get up and take a cold shower, do it now. The shorter time you let pass between remembering, realizing, self-remembering what is the next step to do, and then doing it even if it is uncomfortable, the shorter you do that, the less argumentative space there is, the less your ego has, let's say, a reign over you or a grip over you. So I repeat once more these 4 steps. 1, self-remembering. 2, accepting the pain, the suffering exactly as it is, holding it within your double awareness, allowing it to unfold, contemplating it until the lesson is understood, the message is received, and then 4, allowing for natural transformation to unfold on the background of an attitude of tapas, of being willing to endure the frictions of growth. So this is, in short, some notions on suffering in the light of Tantra and how it can be utilized for transformation. Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, Tantra and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.